Welcome to Fraser Island.
Yeah, he's almost out.
Where you get stuck waiting sometimes.
What a spot to get bogged.
Welcome to Fraser Island. Follow me on a little bit of an adventure as I preview some of the iconic spots on Fraser Island. If you're looking for something in particular, just look in the description. This will be a video just showing you some of the highlights. This is Lake Mackenzie, one of the most beautiful freshwater lakes in the world. And this is called Champagne Pools. And this is why. These are the waves just starting to break over. So I'll give you a few tips and tricks on some of the best times to visit these locations. Just look at the description. And the iconic Eli Creek, probably one of the best little playgrounds for kids to play with, and adults too. Everyone likes just to enjoy a floating, just a gentle, relaxing float down the creek. And so here we begin our video. A very unusual sight where you don't commonly find boats half sunk in the sand. So this is the remnants of a recent beaching during a storm we had a couple months ago. So this would be me beginning my journey up a nationally recognised highway in Queensland, Australia, on a beach on an island called Fraser Island. And we will begin my Fraser Island journey with one of the most iconic spots, Ngala Rocks, where it's notorious for people getting stuck. And so this is a fast forwarded video, and when I arrived I was the only person besides the white vehicle in front of me, and over the next minute or so you'll see a large number of people walking up to find out why can't we drive through, and that would be because there's a vehicle bogged up the top. This is a very iconic spot, and it is not unusual for vehicles to get bogged. And it's no sign of failure or mistakes. It's just the conditions of this spot is uphill in soft sand, and even the most experienced four drivers can get stuck here. But as you see all of the people, there's 10 or 20 four drives behind me now waiting to get through, and we've been sitting here for quite a while. And so, I feel just a slight amount of pressure to perform with my vehicle to get through Ngala Rocks without requiring assistance. And so most of the island, to be honest, is pretty easily driven. So with sand, there's only two main things that you have to worry about. And number one is your tire pressure. If you don't think about tire pressure and you won't let down the air in your tires, then you'll have trouble in locations like this. Anyway, so I believe from the vantage point the vehicle has moved, and so I've gone to go, and the four driver in front of me is already stuck. But I believe they're not stuck to the point where they can't reverse back down. So, with this soft sand, air pressures, you got to lower the tire pressure right down in your vehicle and go. I believe the word is send it. And in the sand, you want to keep your momentum up and to get through. But yeah, there's a few iconic spots on Fraser Island, and there's a few potential hazards. The most reoccurring themed potential hazard on Fraser Island is salt water, and there's no danger of salt water here, and I think it's fresh water in front of us. But saltwater has claimed a number of vehicles on Fraser Island of just mistakes, accidents, and yes, the saltwater, it does not forgive or forget. It just claims whatever's there. Alright, so the forward drive in front of me has reversed back down, and he is going to, or she is going to attempt their next run up Ngala Rocks. So the section in front with the water in it, that's just like a hard based, they call it coffee rock. All of that rock is like compressed old plant material. It's quite soft. You could just scrape it with like your fingernails or a rock. And this part's just like a little fun part, but it's the soft sand ahead. Here we go. So I guess we had to wait a while. And so from my perspective right now, I believe that the way forward is clear for me. So I'm just cruising through the water. It's quite crystal clear. And the only thing in my mind is to go fast. And so once I get on the hard sand, I build some momentum up onto the soft sand, and I'm just going for it. You know, I don't want to get stuck. This is a spot where people get stuck with all the holes, and up ahead it's like, oh, just go nice and slow. You know, I probably didn't even need to go fast, to be honest. You know, I probably could have just cruised up. But as you get higher, sand's still soft, the car got bogged again. So I believe after another significant amount of time, a vehicle come from the other side and must have turned around and pulled him out. And so this guy's going for it, and you watch him go through the spot. Jung, 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 jung. That's like all of the holes in the sand where people get bogged. So unfortunately we didn't have like a proper radio station. They need a sign on either side of Ngala Rocks, use radio station 20. Alright, here we go. And you'll see the car rocking side to side, and I had to wash off some momentum, but just keep it moving. I was probably in like third. I think when I started I was in fourth going up the hill, low range. But here's the soft sand, don't back off. Just keep the momentum, you still get stuck going down. And today it wasn't really that soft, it wasn't that bad. It was, to be honest, not too bad. And so once I'm downhill, I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty good now. Got through, didn't get stuck. Coming back, now that was another story. But I didn't get that on video. Coming back, I had to wait a while as well. Problem is people try and tow things through there, and when you're towing something, it's just, you're going to get stuck. Alright, Lake Mackenzie. That's Lake Mackenzie. And it is exactly like that when you get there. It's just, the eyes see so much more than the camera. The sand is the most amazing sand I've ever experienced. It literally falls off of you. Now, being from Queensland, you know, I'm used to sand. But this sand, you just tap yourself and it just falls off. It's like the softest sand I've ever experienced. It's beautiful. And it's freshwater. This is in the middle of winter here on the island, and we swam every location. The water temperature's cool, but it's very comfortable once you're used to it. And underwater doesn't do it justice, the camera. This is my little fella, he's having a bit of a swim. Champagne pools. This photo was taken on actually quite a windy day. I was the first person here. Champagne pools is best experienced on a low tide coming in. You probably want to get there about 4 to 5 hours before the high tide, so you can just catch the water just gently coming over the rocks for the first few times. So I think we got there pretty lucky. Like I had it planned. Fraser Island doesn't run by the clock, runs by the tide. Tides are dependent on your movements on the island. So yeah, this is about 4 hours or so before the low tide, I think. And the tide wasn't a real high tide, so you got to try and time it best. And you always should be careful with waves and rocks because there are sharp things all around you. And so this must have been the first couple of waves that crashed over, so we were there just for that little moment where the waves start crashing over and you get like they call it champagne pools because of the bubbles under the water. And so that's how it got its name. So that first little section, you probably want to hop out of there now because the waves are going to start crashing over. So you move into the next section, which is just beautiful, clear water with fish swimming around, which you'll see in a minute. And so here the waves come over and it sends the bubbles coming in. Just a beautiful little spot. So this is definitely one of like the top 5 locations, probably one of the top 3. So Lake Mackenzie is definitely in the top 3 as well, spots to see. And so this is just swimming around in champagne pools. All of the fish that are kind of not really trapped. They're just sort of living in that area where the water's a bit calm. Once the tide comes up, they can pretty much go wherever they want. Fraser Island's a very pristine environment. There's quite a number of rules, and Fraser Island was heavily logged, and basically the trees on the island some of them were quite special, very, very hard, tall trees. The wood was very resistant to water rot. And so this is a bit of a wider shot of the pools, so you can see how sort of big they are, and the waves as they're starting to crash over as the tide's starting to slowly come in. So this is a pretty perfect time to be arriving here. We were pretty blessed. In the middle of winter we had 3 absolutely perfect days of weather. I didn't even realize how perfect it was until the last day the wind came up. But there was no wind, the ocean was calm, the sun was out every day. It was just like, look at the sky. It was like that for 3 days, just picture perfect. And this is Eli Creek. This was our first destination, and we did Eli Creek every day, I think. Just spend some time playing where the creek comes out through the beach. It's just like a perfect play area for kids. It's a very relaxing environment, and it's probably the most busiest location on Fraser Island. You'll have planes landing on the beach. You have to remember the beach is a highway that has speed limits, and they can, and the pilots generally will close the beach for a couple of minutes sometimes, just for the planes to take off and land for the tourists. So this is where you walk along the pathway just up the creek, like 100 metres or so, and then you come down. So there's a sign saying, "Don't walk any further. Let's keep it protected." And generally the whole idea is you get a flotation toy, you sit on it, and you float down. If you don't have one, most people just walk it. It comes up to up to hip height in some locations. So it does get a little bit deep. So yeah, this is just Eli Creek. It's a freshwater creek. Fraser Island has just, I think it's got like more freshwater creeks on a sand island than anywhere in the world. It's the biggest sand island in the world. But it's a nationally recognised park. Camping is controlled to certain locations. Only certain locations have full facilities like showers and toilets. Some places have toilets only. Some places you have nothing, basically. A lot of campsites are designed that you have to bring everything with you and you have to take everything away. There's a couple of locations on the island where you can dump rubbish. There's a couple of locations on the island where you can get some petrol and some basic shops. There's one bakery on the island, and that's about it. There's no roads at all. Everything is sand based. So Eli Creek is a must do. It's probably like the number 1, number 2, number 3 thing. It's the busiest place. It's not super special, but it's a pretty nice little spot. It's the only spot in the island where such a big creek flows out to the island. There's literally fresh water streaming out of every part of the ground coming onto the beach. Like there's little freshwater streams like this all up the beach. There's like hundreds of them. Fresh water is not a problem on this island. And that's the creek flowing out. And this is just a few cars. There's a bus in the top right-hand corner of people, tourist people just coming in. They come and play games and stuff like that. This is late on one afternoon where the tide was coming in. It was about 4 hours from low tide coming up to high tide, and these were the crossings, and so everyone's always a bit wary. I've seen people cross this in very, very deep water, and so you've got some four drivers watching what the others do and which lines they do. So generally there'll be a not a steep drop off, but just like a small step down into the water, and some spots will be a little bit deeper. And so you'll see these guys will drive up the creek a little bit. Yeah, here they come. So they're driving up the creek a little bit. So it's pretty much fresh water there, and then it mixes into the salt water. So that's Eli Creek running out to the ocean. So that's the main part of this video done. So I just want to show you a little bit. The rest of this video is just basically just relaxing, sand driving, just sort of, my videos are designed to help people relax and go to sleep. So this video will just basically slowly drift off into just quiet driving sounds on the beach. But this is the visual of what it's like. So this was when I first come off the barge and started driving from the very southern part of Fraser Island up the beach. So to get onto the barge, I used a place called Inskip Point. And Inskip Point is notorious, like Ngala Rocks, for having soft sand and people getting stuck. So the whole low air pressures on your tyres begins at Inskip Point. So I'd be recommending going as low as, depending on your rim size, 16 to 18 psi at Inskip. Keep your momentum up. When you're on the island, I'd be recommending running 20, 22 psi. And pretty much you stay in high range for practically everything. It's only when you get to the soft sand that you want to drop your air pressure right down and give yourself the best chance of getting through, because tire pressure is basically the biggest thing for either getting through or not getting through, and momentum. But I was running 20, 22 psi on this type of stuff, just cruising along at 80 kilometers an hour, maybe about 35 mile an hour. But this is what it's like. There's the fresh water just streaming out. That's like fresh water just coming out of the ground, it streams out everywhere. And you'll see this would be just one of the little spots that you have to drive through. As you're coming up the beach, there'll be a few things that you need to detour around, and some will have inland tracks, and some will have just tracks where you can drive on the top part here. So, most of this stuff is all pretty easy driving. And, at first I was like, I'll go into low range for this. But this is me probably changing into high range, but after a day or two on the island, you don't even bother with low range, you just stick in high range all the time. So this was actually my first time driving on sand, and I'm trying to gain confidence and experience in myself and the vehicle to, get through terrain like this. Most of the driving is pretty cruisy, and driving up the beach is pretty nice. They call it the 100-mile beach because the beach is 100 miles long, so that's how big the island is. So it does take, a couple of hours to more to be able to get from the southern point to the northern point, depending on detours and people getting stuck and having to wait for them. As you're driving up the beach, you'll come up some rocks and you just have to sort of follow the tyre tracks of people navigating through. It's a lot about just following where the person in front of you have gone. Fraser Island's good because this is the eastern coast, and you'll always come across people, and most of the time people are always willing to help. But look at the water just streaming out. The water's just coming out of the ground everywhere. It's all fresh water. Like all of that be all fresh water. More fresh water coming out. But yeah, this is the site just driving up the beach. It's so nice. Cruising up the beach, and at low tide, when this is pretty close to low tide. Beach is hard, beach is cruisy. You just got to watch out for where the fresh water streams out. Sometimes, depending on the flow of the stream, will depend on how deep it's bit into the sand, and so probably best to slow down a little bit and just take it easy, unless you want to drive over fast, which you'll probably be fine anyway too. So, tips and tricks on the island. Look at your tide times. The perfect times to go to Fraser Island is to have the low tides in the middle of the day, about 10 to 2 o'clock, or maybe a bit later, because that will give you the biggest window of driving time on the eastern side of the island. So, either side of low tide by about 4 hours, you can navigate most parts of the beach. But once the tide gets high, basically you'll be cut off on the eastern side in certain sections, or you'll be risking driving through oceans and salt water. So the best time to drive or to stay at the island is when low tide is in the middle of the day. So that way you can, like if it's at 12 o'clock, you can start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and basically the tide's going out for 4 hours. Okay. Or you can, and then when you come back, you've got another 4-hour window. So you've got like from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the morning to drive around the place, because driving around the island does take significant time, and you have to allow time to get from certain points. So I camped in Dunbarra, I think it was. That was one of the campsites that had a dingo fence. If you're travelling around the island, if you go to, I think, Waddy Point and Dunbarra, they have public shower facilities where you can go there and have a shower. Cost $2. You need a $2 coin. And I would recommend putting two $2 coins in. Don't expect much flow of water. It kind of just sprays and out a little bit. But it's a good shower, so you can go there for showers. You can camp there. So I camped at Dunbarra for 4 nights. And I wanted to move around, but I decided I'd just pitch a tent and leave it there. And then I'd travel around from that location. So, you might want to pick 2 campsites where you might want to stay and plan your travels. You can use the public facilities at Waddy Point and Dunbarra for showers, which cost $2. So the must-see places is Eli Creek, Champagne Pools, Lake Mackenzie. Okay. I would not recommend going through Ngala Rocks unless you really want to. If you do go through Ngala Rocks and you go up to the tip of Fraser Island, there's a turtle breeding season, and there's a point where you're not allowed to take 4 drives, and beyond that point is where turtles lay eggs. So you could camp up there, but there's no facilities. You have to basically deal with everything yourself. So you've got to have your own sort of toilet facilities if you go up there, and you just jump in the ocean if you want to get clean. I'd recommend not swimming too much on the eastern side of the island. There'd be strong currents and things that might eat you. I would strongly recommend you get to the western side of the island. With Thumba Creek, Winya Creek, just get to the western side of the island. I didn't get to get there this time, but next time I'm going to go there. The western side of the island is picture perfect, beautiful. All right, I've been there once. My YouTube channel's banner, the blue water, is from like 10 years ago, the western side of the island. But yeah, you want to get to the western side of the island. On the video right now, I think that's Indian Head. I think if you go up there, you'll see, you can look down into the water and you can see things swimming around, big things swimming around. I think on the video right now, I think there's a soft sand section where people get stuck as well, Indian Head. You have to drive through. So you'll see the soft sand in front of you. So this is where you just punch it. And this is where I realise I'm on the wrong side of the road. In Australia, we drive on the left. And so if another car comes, the potential for a head-on increases. So I'm switching over into these tracks, which is quite fun just in itself. And just keep the momentum. I'm probably hitting it in 3rd gear, keeping the revs high, and just keep the momentum. But it's not hard to get stuck in this sand. It gets pretty hard and pretty easy now. Early in the morning, the sand's more compact and it's a bit easier to drive on. You can see by the shadows it must have been early in the morning. All right, tips and tricks. Okay, so get to the western side of the island. That's a must do. You know, if you get to Fraser, you really want to do it. Central Station's a nice little walk around. It's quite beautiful, so you can see the rainforest. Fraser Island has a very diverse forest, or forests, different types of forests, and it's quite beautiful to go for a drive through the inland. But yeah, get to the western side, Winya Creek with Thumba Creek, just get over there. There's certain spots over there though, I think it's with Thumba Creek, where you may not want to camp. There could be bad mosquitoes and sandflies. So yeah, you don't have to go past Ngala Rocks, but you need to go through Indian Head to get to Champagne Pools. What else? Let's see. It's all pretty cruisy. Just let your air pressures down, relax. Pick your campsites where you want to camp. You know, if you want to move campsites. I originally was going to, but I decided against it. I decided just to stick to the one campsite, just to save setup and set down time. All right, tips and tricks for Champagne Pools. You want to take goggles with you, all right, especially for the kids. So you want goggles for Champagne Pools. You want a flotation ring, or just even a pool noodle, just to float down the creek, or 2 pool noodles to float down Eli Creek. Lake Mackenzie is an absolute must. This is a little bit of the sand driving through the island. That's it. You know, you just get out there, enjoy it. Camping's pretty simple. I kind of liked the campsite where it was very simple. There was toilets, showers. It was fenced from dingoes. Dingoes are on the island. They can cause some trouble, mainly with people feeding them and leaving food out. So the fines for feeding dingoes has increased, so do not feed a dingo. Make sure you have a permit. Make sure you've organised your camping. There's police on the island that do check you. There's a lot of rangers on the island that check everyone's permits. Do the right thing, and don't be silly. People have gotten hurt on Fraser Island by driving in a not safe way. So just take it easy. Yeah, you want to, whatever time you think you want to spend on the island, you want to try and spend more. you really want to try and spend a bit of time on the island. So I did 4 nights. I really needed 2 more nights. You know, I kind of had to slow things down a little bit, but yeah, you want to try and spend as much time as you can on the island. And yeah, so I'm pretty much going to leave it soon. I'll let you guys just watch some of the footage of me driving around the island. You know, just simple stuff like this. It's just enjoyable being in such a place where there's no buildings, there's no houses. There's a few holiday homes on the island, but to be honest, there's not a lot. You know, it's everything you bring on the island you need to take off. Be aware you're not allowed to have fires. You're not allowed to even take wood onto the island. There's a couple of fireplaces, but supposed to have off-cut timber from a timber mill, which is cleaned and doesn't have bugs in it. So you're not allowed to use any wood on the island for fire. You're not allowed to light fires. You know, you really got to take care of the environment so it's there for, you know, the future generations. The facilities at Dunbarra, I have to admit, were kept very, very clean. And yeah, they were very, very good. I enjoyed staying there. There was plenty of sights. Middle of winter was beautiful. Summertime and school holidays, it's going to be packed. If you want to go to the island through Inskip Point, you want to try and get there early to get onto the barge. You probably want to get there early to get off the barge as well. There can be some significant waiting times. The other day there was lines for a long way, and there was 3 barges running, and the barge only takes like 5-10 minutes to get from the point to the island. It's only a small crossing. But yeah, try and get there early. And it didn't take long to get from the bottom of the island to Eli Creek. That was my first journey. Hour and a half. Yeah, it's just nice just driving through the islands. You get through different parts of the rainforest. And, you know, you can get some speed up on some of these sections where it's kind of smoothish. And you have to slow down a little bit for some of the bumps. But yeah, next time I get to the western side of the island, I'll try and have a look around there. I'm just cautious of deep water crossings. There's a few on the island, and I just want to be cautious. And when I'm by myself, it's a little more risky, as I don't have another vehicle to help. But I'll get there. So yeah, just enjoy some of the visuals of me driving around the island, slowly moving between the trees. And this is like a little bit more of an open style forest where the sun can get through, and there's lots of ferns on the ground, all growing in sand. It's a pretty big island, and that's where it's got its name, 100 Mile Beach, where the beach stretches for like 100 miles almost continuously. It's pretty nice, and it's a very relaxing sensation just driving on the open beach. Driving through the forest is also quite good. But the open beach, you know, having like the Pacific Ocean on one side and a pristine island on the other that's there for you to explore, where you have to have a 4-wheel drive to get around the island. Well, maybe an all-wheel drive will get you a lot of the places as well. But yeah, like I said, open beaches, Some of the beaches are so wide, very, very smooth. There's a couple of spots where it gets sort of bumpy, where you could almost get it airborne. But that's where it gets a little bit dangerous, you know. Eventually you'll roll over, and there's been a number of rollovers on Fraser Island, and people have gotten hurt before. Mostly tourists hiring high four drives. There's a lot of high four drives, and there's a number of tag-along tours where there's like a leader that drives around a group of high four drives, and you or me as the tourist can. Some people can drive the four drives, probably take it in turns, and the other people get to go passenger. And that would be a unique experience, and that would definitely add to the experience of Fraser, where if you didn't own a four-wheel drive, you could hire one, and that would allow you to experience the sensation of driving around on the beach in the soft sand, and just giving you that sense of freedom to explore the island. And that's another one of the beauties of Fraser, is that once you're on there, you're pretty much free, you know, besides the rules, to explore most of the island. Like practically the whole eastern beach is drivable. It's only when you get to the very northern tip that, you know, you need to stop driving on the beach, because it's a sensitive area where turtles come out of the ocean climbing up the beach to lay their eggs. And on the eastern side of the beach, it's a different type of beach. It's not so practical to drive all the way around it. And you can drive on some sections, but there's a lot of more creeks and kind of like river style inlets where it wouldn't be practical to try and drive four drives through unless you were ready for a serious water crossing. But yeah, you don't want to get stuck with the tide coming in anywhere near that salt water. It does claim a number of vehicles. It's just driving up the beach. You can see from the recent storm from a couple months ago the erosion on the left-hand side of the beach. There's some videos online if you'd like to search for it. Search for forward drive action, Fraser Island, and cyclone. Those are the keywords in YouTube, and you'll see this exact same section of beach like there, but basically under siege by a cyclone, which was, I believe, the cyclone that led to the boat, the yacht, at the beginning of the video being beached into the sand. Just driving through the rocks. It's part of the fun of Fraser Island, just trying to pick your way through. Most of it's all pretty easy, you know, you're just following tire tracks. It's just part of the adventure. I'm not sure. This might be North Ngala Rocks. Not quite sure. Maybe North Ngala Rocks. Could be one of those types of places. Just trying to figure it out. It looks like maybe North Ngala Rocks and something like that. It's a pretty common theme throughout the island, just coming across sections, headlands, inland bypasses. But as you slowly go through the sections, it allows you to build up speed. I think this might be the part of the island where it started getting quite sort of bumpy. Not like jarring bumps, but kind of like rolling bumps. and you'd have to sort of watch it. If you started to hit them with speed, you'd come down pretty hard, and then you'd be on the next one, and it would be very, very easy to roll. You know, the conditions are changing every minute of the day with the tides of the water. But that's part of the adventure of Fraser and the beauty. Just driving up the highway. Fraser definitely has a feel of freedom to it. You're pretty much free just to go to any part of the island. The only main restrictions is that you need to have a pre-planned booking for the camping. And some of the spots, like literally just on the left, there'll be camping spots, and you can just book them and camp them. Definitely that was definitely North Ngala Rocks before, because it was after Ngala that we come across this boat stuck in the sand. I'll give you a little story. When we came back the other way, we actually went a little bit further up, and I was trying to get to the Cape, but then I realised when I get to the Cape, there's not a lot there. You know, it starts going to the western side of the island, and to be honest, it's very beautiful. There's a lighthouse there. And I decided to turn around because I realised that coming back through Ngala Rocks with people getting stuck was only going to get harder. So, not much further in front where we are now. This is the bumpy section. This is a section where it starts getting sort of a bit bumpy, and they're kind of like slow rolling bumps, and they come up. They come up pretty quick if you're doing 80 k's an hour. So I think I've slowed down to about 60, 70. So just in case I want to come up a bit too quick, I could wash off enough speed so it wouldn't be so dangerous. You hit them at 100 k's an hour and it's all over. You go over for sure. I think here I'm trying to go on the softer, flatter sand, because if you look to the right, you can't see it much, but it's undulating just up and down, up and down. It's kind of fun. It is fun, to be honest. But you just got to be a little bit careful because it would be very easy to get unstuck. And yeah, so the story. Coming back the other way, we come back to the boat and we find some European travellers. They've got their own four-wheel drive, just an old, crappy four-wheel drive. And they're getting some pretty cool video footage on the boat. They got like one person climbing up the mast, and they got their DJ Maverick flying around, and you get some pretty awesome shots. I'd love to have a drone. And so I said to them, "You're heading back through Ngala Rocks?" Because I looked at their vehicle and I thought, they're going to have trouble. And so I head off and they come with me, not far behind, and we'll pull up to Ngala Rocks because a couple of vehicles are coming through. And I'm thinking, beauty, we'll be able to get through pretty quick. And then it happens. News travels down the line at a very slow pace in Australia sometimes, when we're only wearing thongs on the sand. The four-wheel drives have got bolt coming through in Ngala Rocks. Not one, not two, but three. And the last one's towing a jet ski. And so I'll pull up. After a while, I actually turn my vehicle around so I can pop the boot, stand in the shade because we've been standing there for a while. I'll pull out my remote control car for my little fella, let him have a play while we wait for this group that didn't really seem very keen to go back and help their mates pull their vehicles through. And so we proceeded to wait an hour. And so when it was time, I said to the European people, I would suggest you get your tow strap out of your snatch strap. I've already said this to them, and I said, connect it to my car, I will pull you through. And they said, no, we're going to give it a go. I said, okay. But at this point in time, there's all these other vehicles pulling up. And one guy, he could see what was going on, and he's basically pulled up the front of the line to try and get through first. And we're trying to get on the radios to find out what's happening. And he sent his wife up there, and she took a handheld radio. And so basically we had a radio on when it was clear. And so pulling up, there's vehicles pulling up. And then there's 3 cars pull up as well. These are the ones actually behind. These are some of the first ones to get through after us. And there was 3 cars. One of them had a broken front diff. And so they were already tied up to each other. And so they're going to have to pull them through. And so you've got a vehicle that, the Europeans vehicle, it got bogged coming through Ngala Rocks. It's going to get bogged again. There's a vehicle that's already half broken. It's only in 2-wheel drive. It's being towed. It has to get towed through. It's going to get stuck. And there's other vehicles. And so before I knew it, the old guy with his wife sent his wife up with a radio. As soon as it was clear, he was off. And as soon as I saw him off, I just jumped in, and I was off as fast as I could. And yeah, I just basically went straight up it fast. Straight through the undulating pits where everyone got bogged. And I just went as fast as I could, safely. But I also twin locked myself so that I had full traction and momentum, traction. I don't think I dropped my tire pressures. No, they were already down, I think, about 18. And I just went straight through. And I never saw anyone else come out of Ngala Rocks behind me, so I'm sure that there was a few trouble there. You know, I offered to help. I got the little fella with me, so I'm kind of cautious at this point in time in offering help too much. There's heaps of people around, just for safety reasons. This must be, you can see in the distance, Indian Head and Champagne Pools and all those good places. And this must be North Ngala Rocks. And I don't know why I'm stopping. Just to enjoy the scenery, I guess. But yeah, it was interesting. I saw many four-wheel drives towing things, all stuck in soft sand. I drove past quite a few. But most of the time it's all pretty easy. But towing stuff it's hard. Like when I set up my vehicle, I didn't really want to set it up to be too heavy, and I didn't really want to tow anything. So I've tried to go as light as possible. You know, I see weight in the vehicle as the enemy, and try and set up as simply as possible. So my vehicle, the specs of the vehicle, it's a Mitsubishi Pajero Sport GLS, same as a Montero Sport 2017 Shogun Sport, I think is another name. It has a couple of modifications that might be beneficial in this scenario. The main one being tyres. It's got some Falcon Wild Peak 83Ws all-terrains. They seem to suit this vehicle quite well. On road they're fine, in the wet they're quite good, and off road they're excellent. It has probably one of the most beneficial upgrades you could do to a four-wheel drive to make it really a four-wheel drive is it's got twin Harrop e-lockers in there, and that would give it an extreme amount of four-wheel drive capability over, not an extreme amount, but it changes things a lot. So with the twin locks, all the wheels turn at the same time. One of the reasons this is me pulling up to Ngala Rocks. That's a few of the vehicles that are coming through. There's a couple more that come through, and then the 3 get stuck, I believe. So you might see another vehicle come down. They're on the radio. They're going, oh yeah, we're stuck. Anyway, so the vehicle has twin lockers in it, and it just means that when I go to terrain, I don't have to worry about electronic traction control. The traction control on this vehicle is actually quite good, and it works extremely well for going up surfaces that are rocky, loose, and dry. It does a very, very good job. The traction control, it works better than actually most of the other vehicles in its class. But the electronics, it just goes off constantly. And once your wheels get wet, it's, your brakes don't work that well wet. And it's just noisy, and, you can just tell something's going to break if you do a fair bit of forward driving. With all of those electronics going off, pumping the brakes, trying to get traction, trying to control wheel spin, it's not gonna work that well. So by putting in the lockers, you bypass all of the electronics in the vehicle. You have no limits. The only thing you want to make sure is just that you turn it off after you use it. And it just means that, you can go up quite slowly over things, and you have less chance of damaging the track, less chance of damaging your vehicle. You don't have to go so fast, except in soft sand. Anyway, so tyres, twin lockers, that gives you an extreme amount of traction. Traction is what gets you through stuff. Obviously, mud's mud, but that's another story. And so, lockers, traction. Suspension is just being worked on at the moment, so I've been patiently waiting to add all of the accessories that weigh weight to the vehicle, so that I could then upgrade the suspension to handle what weight the vehicle is expected to carry on a day-to-day basis, plus if I was going camping like I am here. So basically we have laws and limitations here. So we can only raise our vehicles a total of 75 millimeters, which is 3 inches, 1 inch for the tyres, 2 inches for the lift. But that's enough for most applications. Like, I'm not going crazy. I just want to tour and get to the locations in comfort, but be able to explore locations with as little chance of getting stuck. So the lockers are kind of like my savior to my lack of experience in extreme forward driving situations. Anyway, so suspension is going to be done soon. It's got standard wheels. It has a snorkel in case I come across some underwater crossings. Has a roof rack to carry tent, and some accessories like tent poles, chairs, just small stuff. One of the best things it got is a set of drawers in the back, and also a fridge to keep food cold, because the accessibility, just making things so easy for yourself going camping by having a fridge. It just means that you can basically keep all of your kitchen's creature comforts in the car and pull them out any time. And that's about it. It's got a tow bar, but you start adding things up. You go from the back, tow bars, 30 kilos or 60 pounds, roof racks, drawers, drop-down slides, fridges, air compressor, recovery equipment, some tools, some basic kitchen stuff. Then you put a roof rack on, snorkel, side steps, front bar. Oh yeah, it's got a bull bar, on it, and it's got bash plates underneath. You start putting those on it, extra fuel filters, it adds to the weight, and so it's weighing enough, but it's pretty much ready to travel to remote destinations. The only thing it doesn't have is a hot water shower and the privacy of a toilet. So a shovel is pretty good for a toilet and a bit of toilet paper in the Aussie outback. But a shower would be nice. I've looked at these systems. They're called a Glind, G-L-I-N-D, hot water system. They connect to your heating system in your car, and they use the heat of your car to generate the heat of the water, and you can have a shower. You can just get a bucket of water and stick in the suction thing and then have a shower. I kind of like the idea of that, and it's very simple. All you do is just turn the car on, stick the intake in a bucket of water or a hose into a water tank container, and if anything, the problem is it gets too hot. So I've just been waffling on. It's just part of the video and the style of videos that I do, that sometimes people like to use some of these videos just to help them drift off to a deep, deep sleep. And here we go through some nice dry soft sand. This is sort of stuff where it wouldn't be hard to get into trouble, but it's not that hard. Just want to keep a little bit of momentum, just keep it cruising. You don't need to do anything too special. Just want to keep that momentum. Make sure you got low tire pressure. And Bob's your uncle, and there you go. And here I come up to an airfield and a petrol station. I did not expect this here, and a pub. So I believe at night time this place gets a few people, buys a few beers, and I can kick back, look over the ocean and drink some beer. These are typical of some of the bypass tracks to get through some of the sections on the island. And a lot of these tracks are one way, so to lessen the chance of accidents. So a lot of the main tracks I noticed were all pretty much one way. It's nice just driving out and looking straight out onto the beach. Not sure exactly where this is. Another Freshwater Creek coming through. A little bit of a deeper one. Back out onto the open beach. The 100-mile beach, where you just drive and drive and drive. And you can just see how beautiful the blue sky is. Like, I think that was just a campsite on the right hand side. There's you'll see some signs and stuff. I have to admit, the road signs on Fraser are not that clear, and it's not that easy to get your way around. So I don't know, maybe if you use your Google Maps, it actually might work quite well. Google Maps tends to work quite well in a lot of situations. But yeah, on the beach, just driving along. It's hard, you don't really sort of, it's always nice just driving out onto the beach and just, heading out. There's practically no one else around. So this time was the middle of school holidays in winter time in Australia, and wasn't sure what to expect, but I'm pretty happy. Wasn't too busy. Fraser Island can get very, very busy, a lot of people on the island sometimes. So, you know, I want to try and go when it's quieter, but I also like to go when there's a lot more people, just for the little fella have a play, Eli Creek. But yeah, next time I'll be definitely going to the east side. I want to try and spend at least 2 nights on the east side and see how I go. Maybe do a crossing at low tide on one day, come back a couple of days later on the low tide or something like that. But I'll definitely move my campsite around. I'm going to have to practice setting up my camp and putting it down, see how long it takes. Something else that is an attraction on Fraser, but it's not one of my preferred attractions, but it's interesting. It's called the Mahino. Massive boat. It's probably about twice as big as what you can see. The other half of it's just gone. I think she crashed here. She was being towed by a towboat 1930s, 1940s, and the tow line broke during a storm and she came aground here, and that's the end of that. There's no way you're going to salvage it, but they come around, and I believe people took lots of stuff off of it, and that's one of the attractions on Fraser Island. Now this must be heading around Central Station, Lake Mackenzie. But this is one of the beautiful forest type drives through the island. You know, the forest is getting a bit thicker, almost a rainforest here. Trees are quite beautiful. They've grown back. I think they stopped logging about 30 or 40 years ago. But the island was pretty heavily logged. And there's still little bits of remnants left of some of the old stuff. There's a place on Fraser called the Valley of the Giants. It has a very, very cool name to it. And I really wanted to get there. I just couldn't really, almost did it. But we decided against it. I think we went to Eli Creek, just hung out there for a little while. It's a little bit more entertaining because you do have to spend significant amounts of time in the car to get around on the island. But if you break it up into smaller trips and stop off, it's pretty cruisy. But yeah, this is looking pretty rainforesty here with the palm trees and the big trees. But yeah, the beauty of Fraser Island. We're lucky they've kept it pretty much untouched. No bitumen roads, it's just all sand. Again, just that sense of freedom, being able to go wherever you want and explore the island. Try not to get stuck though, and watch out for the ocean. Alright, thank you for watching the video, and I hope you've enjoyed some of the sights and the sceneries.